Welcome back to the Master Jeweler Man channel, where I teach you to become a beginner jeweler to a master. So, today we're going to talk about, obviously, gemstones. And we'll just start here. These are citrines, and a lot of people don't realize that citrine is actually quartz. And it comes in a lot of different colors. Green, clear, orange, obviously, purple, which, by the way, amethyst is quartz, and a lot of people don't realize that. It's the most abundant gemstone in the entire world. You can see something like this, and that is not, let me get it to focus, that is not a citrine. This is actually a fire opal, which came from Mexico, and you notice the color of it is completely different than the rest of these gemstones here. Now, you look at something like this, and it's a big, giant stone, and you're like, wow, it's nice, rich colored, it's huge. It must be worth a fortune. No, it's not worth a fortune. It's worth about maybe $200 at most. At most. And that's if you're lucky to sell it. We'll move on to other gemstones like topaz. Topaz comes in every single color of the whole entire rainbow. There is absolutely every color, from green, blue, orange, red, yellow, tan. I mean, you name it, it comes in it. There are different grades of blue topaz, though. For example, this is called a sky blue topaz, and it is a lighter blue, and you can notice there's just like a high little tint of blue. And then you look at something like this. This is called London blue topaz. It's extremely dark and rich, and this is actually valued a lot more than all other topazes. Then you look at something like this, and it's called a Swiss blue topaz. So those are the three colors right here: Sky, London, and Swiss. And out of all of them, the London costs more. This stone will actually, even though it's smaller, will actually cost more than this. And this stone will cost more than this. So now you know the differences. Then there's something like this, which is irradiated, which they use radiation, like sticking it in a microwave, literally, and they get this odd, unique color out of a clear stone. So there's also white topaz, which, hold on, there you go, white topaz, which is actually a just naturally occurring topaz. It's pretty much almost about the second abundant topaz to come out in this world. Now let's move on to amethyst, which also is quartz. There's deep dark African amethyst. Let me see. Here's an African amethyst, and you can see it's really dark in color. It's really rich. This stone probably values about $400 or $500. The shape and size and everything it is, and it's because of the region where it comes from. Like I said, this is quartz, even though it's called amethyst. It is quartz, but it values depending on where it comes from. You know, there's quartz pretty much across the whole entire world, but South Africa's a harder place to find it. Now let's move on to like peridot. There's different pieces of peridot. Now when you get something like this, which isn't that puke green color, it's more like a really rich, almost emerald color. This is from Arizona. This is called Arizona peridot, and it values twice as much as regular peridot, which regular peridot, as you can see, like this, it's kind of a bleached out, not as great, even though this is a good piece. The value of peridot is about equivalent to garnet, which is right here, and garnet and peridot don't really cost that much. They average between, I'd say, about a $50 to $2,000 range on normal garnet. Now there is something that you need to be aware of when it comes to garnet. Peridot is just peridot, except for Arizona. But when it comes to garnet, there are certain things like rhodolite garnet, which have a little bit of a purple color to them. And depending on, you know, maybe you can see a little bit of the pinkish purple. That costs a lot more. Now you can get up to about $5,000 to $10,000 per stone, just depending on the actual garnet itself. All right, let's move on to different things like opal. We'll go to opal here. Now there are a lot of types of opal. There's black opal, there's white opal, and then there's boulder opal, and then there's matrix opal. So just depending on your actual what you have, opal, believe it or not, is actually one of the hardest pricing gemstones. So for you to take an opal and say, this opal here is worth, you know, $1,200. Well, there's like 7 factors when it comes to opal. It comes to origin, quality, direction, which means the way that the stone is cut and how the color plays. There's more. You could look it all up, but basically, I'm going to keep this short. Basically, opal is one of the most hard. It's even harder than diamonds to judge the color and quality and value. So be very careful when you buy something that's opal. Let me go to my mixed tray here. My mixed tray's got all kinds of different things, and for you to tell the differences between them all is very hard. That's a moonstone. You can tell by basically the clearness of it, but it has a little bit of a tinge green. This is Imperial Topaz, which is the highest valued topaz of all of them. It has a peachy color. You can see there's another one here. This is Imperial Jade that came from China. That's an emerald. That's a blue topaz. That's pink topaz. That's quartz, smoky quartz, which, by the way, when it comes to quartz, let me find the quartz. Well, I don't know exactly where it is. Yeah, there it is. When it comes to quartz, some people will go, you know, oh, look at my big giant smoky topaz. Guess what? They're lying, because that word and that thing doesn't exist. There's no such thing as smoky topaz. So I kind of laugh at customers in my head when they say, this is smoky topaz. And I go, no, it's smoky quartz, because there's no such thing as smoky topaz. It doesn't exist. Look it up. It literally does not exist. Okay? Then you get something like this, and you go, wow, what is that? Well, this is called Mystic Topaz. And it has all these different colors and stuff. It looks like a peacock color. But these stones are actually clear. And then they put a coating on them. And they're treated with a coating to give them that color. And these coatings can actually come off. And if someone's going to sell you a Mystic Topaz for a lot of money, and I say a lot, like over $200+, they're taking you. They're taking you for a lot. You know, now these stones are actually color-changing kunzite, and I say color-changing because a lot of people don't understand what color-changing is. I'm going to hold this one aside and show you guys in a minute what color change is. You can see it's a greenish color, you know. So we're going to go to a different light source, and we're going to change the color to a pink color instead of a green, and you're going to see this is going to blow your mind. Alright, so let's go on to other things. We've got, well, there's a piece of tanzanite right here. So tanzanite is actually very valuable. A stone like this, even though it's very small, this is about a $800 stone. It's pretty valuable because it only comes from Tanzania. And when it comes from only one source in the entire world, it costs a lot more. Okay? Alright, so let's move on to other garnets and rubies. Here, I got a ruby here. This ruby right here came from Moingok, which is a place over in India, and the mine is actually shut down. So this is extremely valuable. This ruby is probably about, I don't know, $3,000 to $4,000 in value compared to, we'll say, I don't have another ruby here that's actually close to, well, here's a ruby. So this is another ruby. It's not as big as the, this one's actually bigger. Now, this is just a standard ruby, and you can tell from the color that it's not as clear at all. It's kind of actually opaque-ish. And this one's probably about $300 to $500 in value versus the other one. So that's the differences in ruby. Now, let's move on to some other pieces here that I have, like cameos. Cameos can vary in price, and you have to be very careful because a lot of these are actually done by a machine. And when it's done by a machine, your value is nothing. When it's done by hand, it's worth a lot more. This is not, you would think this is jade, okay? So here's the difference here. Let me show you. That's jade. This is called jadeite. You notice the darker color that it has? That's because it's called jadeite, which is a form of jade, but it's not actually jade. This, however, which is a lighter green, like an emerald green, is actual jade. This is jadeite as well. These are actual jade pieces. Now you can notice that the color here is the same as the other one, and that one is actual jade, but this is jadeite. And you notice the jadeite is a lot darker in color, so you got to be very careful when it comes to that. This is a ruby, cabochon, and it's very hard to see. This is extremely cheap. So something like this would sell for about $30, $40 at most. Okay? Now let's move on to amethyst over here. Now, actually, here's something that's very interesting. This is called alexandrite, but it's not natural alexandrite. This is lab-created alexandrite, and it's not a good quality. It's actually a bad quality. And we're going to bring this over to our color-changing stones here, and we're going to see the difference in colors when I go outside. Now, here is something called a bicolor smoky quartz. Not smoky topaz, smoky quartz. So half of it has got the darker color, and half of it's got a lighter color. Alright? So that's actually very interesting, and it's actually worth a lot more. These stones right here are Tsavorite garnet, which is a green garnet, and then spessartite garnet, which is an orange garnet. These are actually valued a lot more. Orange isn't valued as much as green. So when you see a green garnet, it's worth a lot more than an orange garnet. 9 times out of 10, you know. That's a smoky quartz. That's a pink topaz that's been treated. Blue topaz has been treated. This is a watermelon tourmaline. So basically half of it is, let me see if I can get it. Half of it is a pinkish color, half of it is a greenish color. Hence the rind of a watermelon, and then the actual watermelon itself. That's why they call it watermelon tourmaline. There's another fire opal. You notice that color? That's it. This is a Tsavorite garnet, but it's not a chromium bearing garnet. So You notice this Tsavorite garnet is a lot darker of a green, almost like a rich colored emerald green. And this one's a lot lighter. You notice those two right there? Okay, that's because this doesn't have chromium and it values a lot less, you know. Let's see. There is, you see the light green tint of this? This is an aquamarine, but that light green tint is what you want. This aquamarine is probably about $5,000 to $6,000, and you wouldn't think that because most aquamarines this size that are a lighter color aren't worth that much. That's peridot. That's emerald. You can tell emerald a mile away because of that green color. It's very rich. This is called andalusite. It's a cousin of alexandrite. That's peridot again. This is lapis, which is always opaque. You can't see in the stone no matter what. This is green quartz. So people like green amethyst. Well, amethyst is quartz. Remember what I told you? So when they say this is green amethyst, guess what? That doesn't change anything. It's still quartz. So it's not amethyst, it's quartz. Okay? Smoky quartz, not topaz. Citrine, obviously opal. Now, you see these? These are emeralds. But the way that they look, they're a little different than a normal emerald like this, which tells you, something's off because they're lab grown. Okay, these are not normal emeralds, they're lab grown. That's a London topaz because it's the dark green. That's imperial jade. These are garnets. You see the nice red color right there? You see it? That is a very high indication. It's a dark stone, but it's got this nice bright red color flashing through it. It's garnet, you know. So here's a lemon quartz. There's no such thing as lemon topaz. Topaz doesn't come in yellow. That's the only color it doesn't come in. So if someone says this is a lemon topaz, they're lying to you. It's lemon quartz, okay? Amethyst. Now, this, however, you see that weird sea green color? That's something that you should notice. If it's a color you haven't seen before in gemstones, I mean, you can look at all these gemstones, but you see this one color and you're like, what is that weird, odd color? This is actually a Podparasha tourmaline. So it's a copper bearing. It has a weird different color because of the copper, and it changes it into this like sea green color. This stone is worth a lot. This is about This is about a $1,200 stone right here. These are lab created rubies, obviously, because rubies that big and that nice and clean, they don't exist. They just don't exist. I mean, if they did, they'd already be sold by then. These are mystic topaz. You can tell by the weird odd colors that come with it, the green, blue, and purple and all that. I've gone over pretty much all of this. So I have a huge collection, and this is actually what I use for repair and other things. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these two stones here, and we're going to go see what they look like in another light source, because that's when they change colors, is in another light source. So, alright, so we can see here it's a greenish color. You know, that's very dark purple. And then we go into natural light, and you'll notice it'll immediately change colors. Now this stone, being a lab created, is a cheaper lab, and it doesn't change color as well as the color changing kunzite, and it's just really cool to see the color effect between, you know, the pinkish color with natural light and the green color under a different light. So that's basically my video today on just simple gemstones. If you have any other questions about them, or you want to know how more to identify, basically your color is your #1 detail of what gemstones are. After that, you're going to have to get a refractometer to figure out what's what. So this is my video, and I hope you subscribe, and we'll see you next episode.